Yeah, sure. So, hi, Rick.
Okay. Hi.
So, we're here on a podcast with the Ric Getter. Rick, how would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, worked in a couple of different occupations, but with a lot of commonality between them. I've worked, my main work has been in media production in various forms, from photography to video, streaming, broadcast, all that stuff. But that's not always a steady occupation, and I relocated halfway into my career. So I've worked in IT and have a lot of IT experience and training on top of that. Uh, and that's kind of nice because these days, during my break in my video career, everything went digital. When I got back into it, at first it seemed like it was totally strange, but and new, because it was very different. And then I realized, hey, this is digital. I know this. And I just had to learn some of the basics and realize that I'm walking into this with the skier, at the same skill level of what would have been an analog engineer, because of the depth of my IT knowledge. My IT work has been enterprise level stuff, system administration, even desktop support. I will confess right now, I am a Mac guy by nature, but I've done a lot of work in Windows. And being Mac, Linux and Unix are very familiar to me. But I also, I guess, what really got me into this is some of the systems analysis and business process training I've had, and also some attitudes towards customers that were drilled into me by when I worked for one of the startups I was with. And so that, I think, is what brought Viktor and I together, aside from both knowing his mom. And so that's what a lot of what he says really resonated with me. So I decided to come briefly out of retirement to see what I can do to support his cause, because it is something I believe in. And it was really interesting for me to hear somebody else expounding it, because I'm usually the one voice that's trying to scream out and say these things, and without a lot of agreement.
Sure, sure. I really appreciate your support, man, and it was very happy for me that we jumped out on the call just to know each other, and I believe we talked for 2.5 hours. And we stopped only because you need to go somewhere. So yeah, I really appreciated it. So about me a little bit, my name is Viktor Nersesov. I'm founder and CEO at Amphibian. Also, I'm an author of Digital Transformation Strategy. I have a very unique approach of what digital transformation is and how it should work, actually. And my experience in IT and consulting for business is more than 5 years and more than 10,000 hours. So I think I can talk about the stuff and can really dive into about it. So Rick, what's the first question would you like to ask? So what was the first thing you would like to pick?
If you can explain amphibian's philosophy a little bit. Actually, I'm curious to see how it got its name. But if you could just give me a capsule of what it believes in terms of digital transformation, and in sort of a succinct way, how it's different than every other bit of advice that people and consultants are tossing out.
Sure. So about the name first. This was your first question, actually. When we started Amphibian, wow, it was, I believe, 5 or 6 years ago. So a long time. So we decided to start with a digital marketing. And I came back to the idea of the name of a marketing for business studio. And when you take the first letters, it's AMFB, so it's Amphibian. This was the first transition. So it was AMFB studio and then Amphibian. But to be honest, I understood quite quickly that marketing is not the stuff I'm actually into. I'm more about what's inside of the company, not what's outside of the company. So then we moved to CRM ERP integration. We became a partner for a SaaS system and started integrating it And first of all, it was small businesses, then medium, then big, then enterprise. And then in a big project, I understand that if you're a big company, even any size of the company, and you want to change something dramatically about your business, like long-term strategically, it's not about the IT stuff. There are another layers behind of that. So I started asking myself, so what are these layers and what we should really impact on, what we should really focus. And then we move into the second part of your question. What is the unique approach? I believe that digital transformation is about creating new digital products and business models firstly. So the classical approach told you that digitalization and digital transformations are actually the same. Digitalization is like more classical approach when you have analog business processes, so you use Excel and you want to automate it and put it in a kind of system. This is like business process automation. And I want to distinguish this kind of stuff. And the digital transformation, it's what I need really to put emphasis on. Because I believe if you're big enough and you want to evolve, if you want to achieve new strategic goals, you need to change what in the heart of your business. So you need to create new products and business models. What the big idea behind the digital transformation? Any product, any business model actually have its limitation by design. So for example, if you sell something enterprise, your limitation by design is price. You could not sell it cheaper because you can reduce costs in a way, but you could not like get rid of this kind of limitation by design. And the big idea, if you set a big enough strategic goal behind of that, so for example, for a big companies, you want to triple the profits for 3 years. You could not use anything like practical what you used before, like classical ones approaches, polishing the business processes, hiring a lot of staff. You need to invent something new because these limitations by design became obvious for you. So you understand in a moment that you need to come up with a new product and business model that certainly will have some limitations, but not those that would stream you out of this strategic goal. Yeah, so it will help you actually. To explain the concept, like really simply, it's more about like Netflix kind of stuff. So, I'm sorry. So, for example, when Netflix came up with the idea that we need to deliver video and not the like videotapes, this is what becomes their overcoming of their limitation by design. So the traditional way you can build actually warehouses, you can set up logistics, open 10,000 shops around the world to deliver videotapes. This is like a classical approach when you have the still sticking with your business model. Or you can come to innovation and understand that as a customer, as a consumer, I only need video in any form. So you can change the way you do deliver the video and still make the customer satisfied and grow much faster than in a way like any traditional company just delivers like their videotapes. So this is a big, big idea behind digital transformation in my point of view. You need to change what you're doing and not how you're doing that. And another kind of stuff, innovations are born in a moment when you stop to manage with actual limitations and you start creating new ones, new products, new limitations for sure, but not those who interrupts you from strategic goals. This is a big idea behind that.
Got a question. How does in your concept, because I see a opportunity also being an element here. Because I remember when Netflix started, in fact, at the time I was living in Silicon Valley, probably about 2 miles from their headquarters, or the little shop that they were in when they started out. And the thing is that, and I'll be honest, I mean, I tend to like to think of myself as a bit of a futurist, and I saw their idea of mailing out DVDs to people to be absolutely absurd. That it just, how can you do that? It just doesn't make sense. And obviously, I kind of proved my futurism has limits. But the thing is, back when they started, the idea of streaming video on demand, the technology, the infrastructure, the bandwidth just was not even dreamed of at this point. And then the technology, the big data centers started forming, the bandwidth started increasing, exponentially. And then it seems like Netflix started thinking about streaming. So how does that play into your, your philosophy, where you have a system and something that essentially works, even if it's just digitized and not digitally transformed, but something else shows up, a new technology develops or a new technology appears, and suddenly there's an opportunity there. How does that fit into your plan, your process, your transformation?
Actually, this is about the idea that you need to create as a solution. Yeah, even if it's not existing on the market. Like look up for Tesla, for SpaceX. When Elon Musk told people that we need to turn back the rockets, everybody said he's a madman. Or if that we will make a self-driving electric cars like 10 years ago. And I believe that everybody in Toyota, in Ford, in General Motors just laughed at him and said, oh, wow, man, good luck. But good luck with the skepticism behind it, to be honest, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of Netflix, wow, it's about the focus, actually. You can still like digitize existing processes in a traditional way. You can still like build warehouses for that. But, when you create innovation, when you decide, okay, we need to stop serving the limitation, which in Netflix case is like the videotapes, maybe it should be another kind of solution. Maybe it's not about the internet itself. But the idea is that the videotapes, because we understand that this is not scalable in the way we want to scale. So we have like a very much bigger strategic goals. We don't have $1 billion in our pocket right now to scale it as fast as we can. Or even we have one, but we don't want to spend it that way, actually. This is a bit the big idea behind it. And I see that it's kind of a lab inside the company, and call it a startup lab, where you create these products and business models, like an MVPs of them, and then test it on scalability. So is it profitable or not? Is it like a break-even point? How are we going to monetize it? But the big idea, what's your focus at a big company? Yeah, so if you're focused on polishing the existing process, you would never like triple in 3 years. It's impossible because you're too much focused on saving where you are, the way you are, and the same. So imagine, for example, a big bank. And the bank has a strategy to open new offices. 95% of those offices would never break the break-even point, or it would be very unstable. And instead of investing, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars or even billions of dollars in opening the new offices, you should really ask yourself, is there another way to scale without this kind of limitations? Because any office needs personnel, any office needs rent, any office needs something like repair or something like that. So is there a way to go from point A to point B, but in easier, more natural way? Because yes, if you're a very big company, you can scale with open new offices, like maybe you can even triple. But think about the quantity and quality of resources you need to do that, instead of saying, okay, maybe we need to scale with creating a new mobile bank that will be a competitor to existing neo banks, with another philosophy, for example, from existing classical banking apps. They're hard, they're very hard to use. The support actually sucks in general, so you could not feel free there. So this is it. This is about the key strategy, the key focus of the company. And I believe that your key focus needs to be on the products and business models itself, new ones, digital, and then test them and then scale them, rather than polishing the business processes, make them more automated and more. So this is a second priority by my side. But the first is about the new products and business models. And when you create a lab, for example, imagine you can create 100 new business models and products per year to year, like for tens of years. Would one or two succeed? It's very highly probable for you, for the company. But even if it's not, the management culture you developed in that lab, the organizational structure, the business processes, the IT infrastructure for that products and business models much. You can still upscale to the main company and made it much more efficient. So this is the big idea behind that. But still, I believe that you should put emphasis on new products and business models and stuff because it simplifies your goal achieving. Yeah, like Henry Ford told, if I asked people what they want, they told me faster horse. But the big idea behind that, if you have to reach from point A to point B, and it's like 3,000 miles, for example, and you have a month, you can use a horse, no problem. But if you have like a week, you cannot find horse like that will run you 200 miles per hour for hours or even a day. So you need to change the approach. You need to create an automobile or a train or a plane, but it's also a new product and business model. Otherwise, you would not travel so far. Any horse will do that. So this is a big idea.
Yep, like your horse allegory, and even going back to Netflix, I mean, we're all kind of familiar with what we see as a sort of as a movie buff, a small tragedy where they're actually getting out of the DVD business at the end of September. And what I think that kind of relates to your bank analogy, where they've reached their limit on expansion, and the mailing business, as automated as they have it, was still required a lot of physical real estate and still a fair number of people, and a lot of warehousing and shipping, and they felt that they just could not, I don't think, make enough money doing that. It's much easier and much more economical to scale up with streaming. Even though now that's been shown to have some issues with the traditional way of the creators are paid. I'm sensitive to that because a lot of my work is on the creative side. And by the way, if anybody sees this and is interested, I write for a magazine. I forgot to mention, I write for a magazine called Mac Directory.com. So if you like what I say, there are a lot of people who write for that magazine who are just as smart and witty, and for better or worse. Anyway, so I see the Netflix situation as being sort of a two-edged sword. I mean, you are getting a benefit out of the digital transformation, but unfortunately, there are some things that are left behind that it's just part of progress. I mean, in your analogy, there are people who much prefer riding horses to flying on airplanes. And I can understand that, but so some of these transformations are difficult, and they're not. There can be some ambivalence towards them. So I'm trying to think.
Yeah, man, I totally got your point. But if you remember, I believe I heard the words of the guy who helped to develop a YouTube for mobile. And when he started the concepts of YouTube for mobile, everybody laughed. They told him, nobody will watch YouTube on mobile because it was limited by the traffic speed for mobile internet. It was limited by the power of mobile devices. who simply could not generally do good video, like in good quality, and other bunch kind of stuff. And everybody laughed and said, what? Nobody will use YouTube on mobile. Now, YouTube is generally about mobile devices much more than PC right now. So the idea is when you create an innovation, when you stop serving existing limitations, like the traditional market will laugh at you. They told you that this is like impossible. There is no sense in doing that. There are like more classical traditional ways that was approved by centuries. Why do you do that? But ask yourself, if you want to create a new industry, if you want to revolutionize, is there a way to use old approaches to do that? So let's be honest, Netflix create a new niche. Like nobody in Hollywood or Disney, Pixar or something like these big guys like HBO, nobody thought that sell streaming online and the internet for a subscription instead of selling like traditional way when you pay for rent or you buy a film if you want to watch it. They say this is insane. And now they open in the same business models as Netflix does. So they are copying. Yeah, Netflix, like they have some challenges for the market right now. But who started that? Who created the market? Who took the most like revenue from that? And also, I would like to add that the true digital transformation allows you to create something totally new. So for Netflix, is filming their own automate content. If you're selling videotapes, why do you want to create an auto content? You don't need that for your existing company. And if you're a streaming platform, you need to create a unique content to drive sales. So this is like a total difference. For example, if you order a taxi by phone, you would never know who is the driver, where is the car. You could never see the map for you because it's on the phone. And when you go into digital transformation, you have this unfair advantage as a user, as a customer, you would never have before because nobody cares. You just call the taxi, say, okay, I'm standing right here in the field somewhere. Where? That's it. So yeah, it's not simple. I would not call it hard, but the big idea behind that you can make it understandable. So you can do it by certain steps, so it's understandable. It's not like easy, but it's understandable. Rather than going the old traditional way and achieving, like untraditional results with traditional instruments. It's not working like that, genuinely.
Right. Yeah, I see a lot of this as, especially with the Netflix case and even with the YouTube example, like I can get into in a bit, the vision to understand a customer need that doesn't, the customer, him or herself, themselves may not understand they have. And I still look at things, I tend to look at things from a customer-driven standpoint because basically businesses can't survive unless people want to use their product and service. And they can't succeed unless they want to use their product and service more than other companies' products and services. And Netflix and realized that they could offer through streaming when that became a possibility. I mean, there were no airlines flying when people were riding horses across the country regularly. So there were really no other options. There at points, there wasn't even a railroad that could do it quicker. But they started to see that this possibility was on the horizon, that they could go one step further than the rental and subscription solution, where you requested and then you got a DVD at first, like a week or two later, which was the best they could do at the time. But the thing is, at least the DVD let people watch something that they wanted to watch when and where they wanted to watch it, pretty much, which is something theaters and TV couldn't do. And then this big data centers started developing, and YouTube started showing that streaming video over the internet was in some ways possible. And they had the brilliant idea of trying to put the two together, and then worked the business process out of getting movie companies on board with it as another way of distributing their creations, angering theater owners and film distribution companies a great deal, but with some no pain, no gain. And so they really changed the model of how people consumed media. It went from linear to on demand. And that, from a media standpoint, was a very, very big deal. So to me, it was like being aware of two things. Being more aware of customer needs than your competitors are, and then seeing technology-based opportunities that can be applied in a way that other people haven't thought of applying them. A big part of, I think, YouTube's transformation, the whole idea of mobile video, was the iPhone, because that was a device created for needs that many people didn't think they had. I remember years carrying around my cell phone and my Palm Pilot, and then I would, find the addresses on the Palm Pilot and phone numbers, and then transfer that to my cell phone. And because my cell phone really couldn't do that much aside from make phone calls, but the two devices were always with me. I was going through, a time when I was just traveling a lot and just living on those two devices. And then Apple came out with this idea of, well, let's squish them together and see what happens. And obviously a lot did. Google picked up with Android, and the idea of a cell phone that can only make phone calls or do primitive texting is totally horse and buggy right now. And technologies like YouTube with mobile, streaming, everything like that, exploded. And mobile devices changed a lot of things. From what I understand, a lot of developing nations' banking systems leapfrogged the rich nations' banking systems, because they jumped past mobile ATMs and checking accounts and things like that, and all of a sudden individuals who would never be able to afford doing traditional banking had banking available to them in their hand. And the West is still trying to catch up with that. So that is a digital transformation. I think that worked to the benefit of many, many people.
For sure. About the banking, for example, in Ukraine, I always told you that as a Ukraine citizen, you can open a bank account and actually start using the card like in 2 minutes, with all the AML and KYC procedures automated, because you have a government app that contains actual digital passport and digital sign up. So it's like your own digital ID. And the AML and KYC procedures are much more automated, because you don't need to take a photo of your passport and then the person check if the photo is real, if the numbers are real, and anything kind of stuff. Yeah, so this is like, so even if you're talking about back in Ukraine, it's a very big issue. So in my home country, we talked about, okay, we need a way to identify a person. Why do you need a paper document behind that? So why do you need a physical passport? Why do you need a physical driving license? Why need a physical student membership card? You don't need that. You need a way to identify if it's real or not. That's it. And on that idea was built a government app called DIA. They started actually with an MVP with the driver's license. So it's not simple like only the image. You have a QR code, you can scan it with the other app and check if it's legit or not. So it's an actual legit document. And after they skyrocketed with the driver licenses, they just started to add another document. So there was a ready-made infrastructure, a ready-made app, and all they've done, they just add new features to that app. Rick? Sorry, back again. So this is a big idea behind it. You don't actually need a physical document. You need a way to identify it. And then any other kind of private guide just started to take the integrations. So hotel, you arrive at the hotel, you show a QR code, hotel scan it, bam, it works. You're authorized. Nobody needs a scan of your passport, and the physical paper scan to store them behind the hotel point. When you came to BAM, you have access to your account. So nobody needs to take your passport, then look at you and verify, oh, that's you. And all that online services stuff, for example, you need to sell a car. You open the car website, like car marketplace, and you can verify you have your driver license, you have your automobile registration. So you just click, and the websites already know that you're an actual owner of that car, and this is the model car and the actual year that it was produced, not the one you choose to put in, but what's in the registry. And that's like revolutionized a lot of things. And then you move to the point, for example, if you're talking about the government services, if you took the person out of it, because the corruption is made by people, but not the people themselves, but the position they put in the government system. So imagine you have a person who signs for example, for a public food place licenses. You want to open a restaurant, you come to a certain person in your area, in your region. And there are two ways how you can deal with that as a government. You can either train this person, you can rehire the person, you can put like a secret spy to watch after that person. But like in the government scale, you cannot hire 100,000 best persons at all, like the perfect ones. It will not work. The other way, you can give the customer a new way to close their business tasks without going out to that person, without meeting him or her. And this is the way I believe the digital transformation works. So you work, as you told, on the customer side, but it's also strongly visionary driven. So if I just give you, oh, the customer need this and the customer need that, and give me a new product just from these things, you would not do that, even if you're best analytics. But if you have a visionary how it should work, and then understanding our customer needs, and then some expertise in the area we're talking about, then these all things combined, it actually works and actually brings innovations. And not all of these innovations would be the same. But if you build the culture of building this innovation, wow, you will succeed as a company and you will still develop much faster than all of your competitors. And I don't believe that if you want to scale fast and proficiently for longer term, I don't believe in copying, to be honest. I don't believe in market research too much, because when you create innovation, it's not about market research generally. It's about the vision, the expertise, and then the understanding of customer needs. Because yeah, you know that every customer wants their car like to for example, to drive their car as simply as they can. But not every company comes to the autopilot idea. So you see what I'm talking about. So generally companies comes to the cruise control and that's it. Why do you need an autopilot? Isn't that enough for you? You still have the same customer needs. You see where I'm leading.
Also saying that we're about 2 minutes out from having to wrap up here. So the Zoom countdown timer is staring me in at the face. So is there something you could say quickly that would kind of wrap up. And I think you've really explained what you do well and why you do it. But just to wrap up, the simple message you want people to take away from this.
So the simple message is to, first of all, understand that, once again, digital transformation is about creating new digital products and business models, and not simply automating or digitizing the processes. Two, understand that you need to set your own strategic goal that would be so big, you start to see the limitations by design in your products and business models, and you have eager to create new ones. And the third step is understanding what I call digital transformation strategy model. So the 7 layers of that. The top layer is the mindset of a founder or manager, or who I am. The second layer is the products and business models, or what am I doing here. Third thing is culture of management. Actually, how am I doing that in reality? Not what's written in the book or on the wall in your office, but how you actually do that. Then you move to organizational structure. Who is my team? Business process structure. What do they do? IT infrastructure. How do they do that? And results. What's your strategic goal? Where are you going to? And in this model, we can see that IT stuff is on the 6th level. And any kind of IT infrastructure cannot create any culture of management instead of it. They can only support it. And this is what I call like a fundamental problem of the markets, because they replace your responsibility as a manager or the founder to change something in your company with by the CRM, by the ERP. It would be perfect. It would be fine. In my own experience, even in big enterprises, it's not about the budget. Actually, it's not about the people, but it's about the manager himself or herself and the vision and the culture he is building. That's much more important. And no training and no software will change